All right, welcome back to JankTech, the fun series where we talk about Star Wars Unlimited with a focus on twin suns, janky card interactions, non-premiere formats, and all kinds of other fun stuff that you don't get to do when you're just grinding it out one-on-one. So this is the second video in my series about beginner-friendly budget twin suns decks. So I've already done one video in the series. Hopefully I'll put a thing down here linking to that if you're interested. I will eventually have 4 total decks made for extreme budget twin suns, so you can get a group of 4 people that are new to the game. They can play stuff that's simple and straightforward without too many weird rules things happening, and they don't have to spend a ton to do it because, you know, when you're new to a game, especially a TCG, you gotta kind of like take it easy at first and be like, I don't know if I need to spend a ton of money on something like this. This one right here is like the Cadillac of the 4 decks that I've made, coming in at a whopping $20.68. Oh my goodness. I feel like for this one, it was really like the spirit of the deck. I could not get this any lower. I'm sure that maybe we could do some other substitutions. If you've got any ideas, please put them down in the comments. And I'd just like to say, if you checked out my other stuff and you're still here, thank you so much. It's been really fun making these. So please give me a like and subscribe to the channel if you want to keep seeing more Twin Sun stuff. I've got 2 more of these extreme budget beginner deck videos on the way. I've got another cool 80 card deck that I can't wait to talk about. And we've got a lot of jump to light speed stuff coming out. We're in spoiler season, so I'm going to start putting out some videos about jump to light speed leaders, which ones I think would be cool in Twin Suns combinations, all sorts of great stuff. All right, now that we're properly hyped, let's get on with this one. So again, in case you didn't see the last one, this is meant for people that are just basic baby, beginner, Padawan, complete newbies at Twin Suns, all playing each other. Like, what do we do? How does this game work? So this deck isn't trying to be super cute. It's supposed to be very straightforward. I'm putting leaders together to have obvious interactions and obvious kind of ways of building the deck. So once somebody plays with this, they should hopefully understand why these cards are included. But don't worry, I'm going to talk about each and every one of them. If it's anything like the last video, it's probably going to be around 40 minutes long. And we're just going to have a lot of fun with it. It's worth noting, this is a 50 card deck. And the reason that this deck is 50 cards instead of 80, because y'all know I like those 80 card decks, is just we want to have as few moving parts as possible. If somebody is learning a game, we want a little bit more consistency. We don't want people having to really agonize over resource decisions. So I think 50 is a good doable amount for getting somebody into the game. Maybe later we'll do 80 card learn to plays, but I think for Twin Suns, 50 is a really good one for learning. So let's get into it. What do we got here? We got Budget Tark Saxon. This is a really fun one. I think this combo is super good. I think this is a viable combo to like turn into a real deck if you make some more non-budgetary kinds of choices in here. Like, yeah, you just throw like, you know, a few Vaders in there or whatever. It'll be fine. Anyways, so what do we got here? We got Grand Moff Tarkin, we got Gar Saxon, we got Kestro City, which means we're running with a red base. I picked those because, well, what does this deck do? Tarkin, as an action, you spend 1, you exhaust him, and give an experience token to an Imperial unit. You'll never guess what kind of units are in this deck. Oh yeah, it's all Imperial. Every single unit is Imperial. I wanted as little room for error as possible in this deck. So I made sure that in order to get a consistent Imperial package, we need to include red, because red has got like all the Imperials from the first set. Oh my gosh. So that's pretty much the major reason for this. And then Gar Saxon. Each friendly upgraded unit gets +1/+0. We're going to be upgrading our units with Tarkin. They're going to get extra buffed because of Gar Saxon. I think it's just like a really easy, I do this thing and then this other thing is better. Tarkin and Saxon are just really good together. They make such a wonderful couple. All right, so Tarkin deploys at 5. He's a 2/7 on attack. You may give an experience token to another Imperial unit. That's awesome. That's just going to make him even stronger. Gar Saxon, he deploys at 6. He's a 4/7. Each friendly upgraded unit gets +1/+0. So much like Krennic in my previous video, His abilities is good all the time. If something has an upgrade on it, well, bam, it's extra good. That's awesome. It also gains when defeated. You may return an upgrade that was attached to this unit to its owner's hand. This is less relevant because most of the upgrades in this deck are going to come from using Tarkin's ability, and is an excellent chance for people new to the game to learn that when a unit with an upgrade is defeated, token upgrades are just gone. Like, you don't get them, they don't go to your discards, they're just gone. So hopefully that will be an easy thing to reconcile for someone new to the game. All right, well, let's get started. So what have we got in here? We got a whole ton of ground units, 27 ground units in this 50 card deck, 8 space units, a few events, a couple of upgrades. I had to have a few, right? Like, we want to get some things back. So what is this deck trying to do? You see, there's a lot of cheap guys because we want to use Grand Moff Tarkin's ability as much as possible. We are going to try to play behind the curve a little bit. So what do I mean by the curve? When you start off your first turn in this game, you have 2 resources. If you're resourcing every turn, like you should be doing with this deck, you get 1 more resource as you go along all the turns. In order to make the most of Tarkin, you always want to have 1 resource left to do his ability to buff the heck out of your units. So if you can play a Death Star Stormtrooper on turn 1, it costs 1. You have 1 more resource to use Tarkin to put an experience in that Stormtrooper. Ordinarily, that Stormtrooper would be a 4-2 because of Saxon's ability. That's a 5-2. You put out a 5-2 on turn 1. Oh my gosh, gross. The unfortunate thing about having to include all these Imperials, we don't have a whole lot of 1-drops. We have like literally 1 1-drop on the ground. We have 1 1-drop in space, but you might get lucky and pull them. So we don't get it to fire every turn. That's okay. But for the most part, you want to play, I'm gesturing towards the screen like you can see my hand on the screen. You want to play under curve. You want to leave 1 resource, if possible, free to use Tarkin's ability every turn. Okay, cool. So we covered the Stormtrooper. Next, let's get on to the 2 drops. Admiral Mahdi. He's a 1/1. When defeated, you may ready a villainous unit. Mahdi is an Imperial. You could buff him up if you really wanted. And like, honestly, like, why not? No one's going to want to deal with Mahdi, especially if he has an experience on him. He's going to be a 3-2 thanks to Gar Saxon's ability. And like, his stats are decent for just being a 2 cost with a 3-2 stat line. But since so many of our units are villains because they're mostly they're all Imperials, then like, Mahdi is just going to be great at readying your guys. So it's kind of like a really obnoxious unit for people to deal with. And he is one that you are really going to want to have in here. Admiral Ozzel. Admiral Ozzel is an interesting one for new players. I think it's interesting that they put this in the Vader starter set deck because he can be really weird if you are just starting the game. But I think he's an excellent opportunity to learn the certain timing of playing cards as a new player. So he's a 2/3. Action, exhaust him, play an Imperial unit. Again, all of them are Imperials. From your hand, paying its cost, it enters play ready. Each opponent may ready a unit. When do you use Ozzel? Ideally, you use Ozzel if you have the initiative. So one of the things about new players is learning when is the right time to take the initiative, when is the right time to do other things. I think Ozzel is a perfect example of teaching you that it might be worth not attacking for some small amount of damage in order to be the first one to take a special token, whether it's initiative, whether it's blast, whether it's whatever. And in this case, if you have someone really good in your hand that you know you can play with Ozzel at the start of the next round, you take that initiative, you say, hey, guess what, y'all? I'm playing a ready, I don't know, Crosshair, or I'm playing a ready Gideon Hask, and they're all going to be like, oh, but all my units are all ready already. Oh no, Ozzel, you're not actually as clumsy and stupid as you appear to be. I certainly wouldn't force choke you. You get the point. Ozzel is awesome under the right circumstances, but he can really shoot you in the foot if you're not careful. And I think that's an excellent tool for teaching people that are new to the game. Also, he's an Imperial, so you can stick an experience on him. He's a 3-4. Well, no, he's a 5-4. Thank you, Gar Saxon. So Even that, that's nothing to sneeze at. Got a First Legion Snowtrooper, also from the Vader Precon. 2/3, well, attacking a damaged unit. This unit gets +2/+0 and overwhelm. You're not going to be dealing a whole lot of direct damage in this deck, so his ability isn't quite as useful. Like, there are going to be circumstances, like if you use Fifth Brother, like we talked about in our last video, to deal a little bit of damage to something. If you used Crosshair, and we'll talk about him later, to deal damage to something. If you used maximum firepower, any of these things that put damage on units, great. You want to attack them with the First Legion Snowtrooper, especially if you put an experience on it to give it that +2/+1 buff. And I'm going to be saying +2/+1 buff for experience as shorthand because you get +1/+1 from the experience and the +1/+0 from Saxon because it's an upgrade. So great. And it's worth noting that this is a trooper. This is a trooper. We're going to have a lot of troopers. There's a lot of troopers in this deck. And we like that because General Tag here gives an experience token to each of 3 trooper units. So you don't want to hold on to Tag too long, but you want to have at least 2 troopers to get some value out of him. So yeah, just like real quick, who's our troopers? We got this guy. This is a trooper. This is a trooper. Trooper, 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 like not a trooper. You get the point. There's a lot of them. And we'll keep on going through there. And so we like being able to use Tag to buff several guys at once. He's awesome for this particular combo. Incinerator Trooper. This guy is so good in this combo because while attacking, it deals combat damage before the defender. You stick an experience on him with Tarkin. He's now a 4/3. Dealing 4 damage to something and not taking damage back, as one of the people in my playgroup says, that ain't nothing. Like, Incinerator Trooper for a 2-cost unit, very good. Scout Bike Pursuer, we saw this guy in the Grand Inquisitor deck. Well, guess what? He's back. He's an Imperial. He's a trooper. He's going to get buffed from Tarkin. He's going to get strong from Saxon. You can crash this dude into stuff. You get that +2/+1. He's a 3/5 without any grit. You run him into something, he's got a big butt. He can take a whole lot of damage. Let's just say you take, 2 damage on him. You're swinging for 5 the next turn. Like, you can keep putting damage on this dude. You can keep stacking experience on guys. Like, you only get the Saxon buff 1 time, but there's nothing stopping you from putting multiple experiences on your units with Tarkin. Obviously you have to do it in different rounds. You get my point. You don't have to completely say, oh, this one gets 1, this one gets 1, this one gets 1. Like, you can have a few favorites that you pull close and say, I love you the best. Don't deal any of the other ones. Anyway, Scout Bike, great. Love him. Seasoned Shore Trooper. It's another trooper. It's a 2/3, but while you control 6 or more resources, it gets +2/+0. That doesn't count as an upgrade, but it's nice that there is a trooper guy that can become stronger in the late game. I think this is awesome. I love his fresh Jimmy Buffett looks. And I know he's like, the Battle of Scarif or whatever from Rogue One, but I think this guy is good in pretty much any deck that is green villainy just because it gets better late game and it's a good early game card. You can't lose. Seasoned Shore Trooper. Stow Trooper Lieutenant. When played, you may attack with a unit if it's an Imperial. Oops, all Imperials. It gets +2/+0 for this attack. So ideally, you played something on a previous turn, you buffed it with Tarkin, you buff it again the next round with another experience, then play Snowtrooper Lieutenant, attack for a ton. Like, this is a good card at teaching you timing on when do I use Tarkin to put an experience on something? Is it better to put the experience on the Snowtrooper Lieutenant, or maybe I put it on a guy that I have ready so I can attack with it for an even bigger buff when Snowtrooper Lieutenant comes out and lets me attack. This card is awesome. It is so good being able to play a card that gets you a body and does something else. This helps teach people action economy, which, as someone that also loves Netrunner, I enjoy calling click compression, but you can just ignore that part because it's not really Star Wars. If y'all ever want to talk about Netrunner, dude, let's have a conversation about Netrunner. Oh my gosh. Anyway, Snowtrooper Lieutenant, super solid in this deck. Love it. Next up, we got the Viper Probe Droid. It's an Imperial. You put an experience on it, it turns into a 5/3, and you get to look at someone's hand. So maybe you see someone else at the table looking like they're itching to play a card. Like maybe you have a GI Krennic player that's using the deck that I've already done, and you saw somebody ready a unit, but they're looking at their hand a whole lot, or they're looking at other people's units, and you're like, you're probably going to play something nasty. So why don't you get that intel, and then you can be like, hey, buddy, how about you play that on someone else, and maybe I won't attack you with this thing. Anytime you can get information in Twin Suns is good. Cell Block Guard. Again, the classic, it's a 3/3. You stick an experience on it. Boom, it's a 5/4. Nothing's getting through. And if it does, because it did 4 damage, it's going to die trying. Death Trooper. I love this dude. So when played, deal 2 damage to a friendly ground unit and 2 damage to an enemy ground unit. It's that action economy we were talking about. Your guys are likely going to get experience on them. They're going to be tougher. They can withstand the damage. And you get to damage something else. I think it's a win-win situation. Death Trooper is great. It's also a trooper, so Tag can put something on it. I also just really like the artwork, so it's like it makes you feel even better about including it. Delmico, he's one of our few rares in here. Not only is he an Imperial and a trooper, he's got Restore 1 so he can heal your base, but most importantly, he annoys all of your opponents. Their events all cost 1 more. This is one of those units, somebody plays Delmico and everyone will look at each other and be like, we have to take care of Delmico. This is a problem. I can't do any of the fun things I want to do. He forces people to either pay the tax or focus on him. So you know what you do? You stick some experience on him and make him harder to deal with. Heck yeah. Fifth Brother. We covered Fifth Brother in the Grand Inquisitor Krennic deck and why he was so good there. He's very good in this one for different reasons. So because he's Imperial, we can put counters on him with Tarkin. Every time you put an experience on Fifth Brother, that's another time you can use his ability to damage himself to not only ping something, but to increase his damage that he's outputting. So he's a 2/4. Let's say you put an experience on him with Tarkin. Great. So he's +2, +1. So that means he is a 4/5. You swing with him, you deal a damage to him to deal damage to something else. He's got raid 1. Now he's swinging for 5. Maybe you swing him into somebody else's unit. You take another 2 damage. That's going to raid him up even more on his subsequent attacks. But if you put another experience on him afterwards, well, I mean, that's just like a free damage that he can take. Fifth Brother gets so big and so unmanageable. I love him so much. I think he's very cool with Tarkin. General Veers. Other friendly Imperial units get +1/+1. This is another one of those, your opponents see you play it, they are going to want to kill Veers immediately, so don't get too attached to him. This is an interesting one in teaching people timing of cards, because you might not want to play Veers at 3 resources, because likely you only have one other guy on the table. So it's like, when do I play Veers? Well, maybe I have like 4 guys on the table. I play Veers on a later turn instead of playing a bigger unit, and everybody's just like, oh no. Phase 3 Dark Trooper. This thing is awesome. It's a Sentinel that if it survives combat damage, it gets an experience, which then buffs it even more. It's like such a good include with these 2 leaders. It synergizes so well with both leader abilities. You hope to get Phase 3 Dark Trooper. Do not resource this card. Crosshair. Crosshair is a card that never really got played too much in constructed formats, well, more precisely Premier. I think he's a cool Twin Suns card. He's a 2/6. So he's got a big butt. Here we are talking about butts again. He's got a big butt. Takes a long time for him to get killed. For 2, you can give him +1/+0 for the phase. And as an action and exhaust him, you can deal damage equal to his power to an enemy ground unit. You know, he's a sniper. He's sniping guys. The cool thing about this, you stick 1 experience on him, all of a sudden he is a 4/7. You can just exhaust him to deal 4 damage to a ground unit. And if you have the resources, you can buff him as many times as you can afford it. This guy is awesome in a slower format like Twin Suns. He provides negotiation fodder. You can be sitting on a ready Crosshair and just looking at everyone else, especially if you have a sentinel out, and being like, maybe I'm coming for you. Maybe I'm coming for you. I think Crosshair is very fun. The Tarkin unit. He just lets you search the top 5 cards of your deck for up to 2 Imperials. You're going to find some Imperials. I'd be real surprised if you didn't. Reveal them and draw them. I think like Tarkin is an auto-include in a Tarkin deck. You want Imperials, Tarkin gets you Imperials. I didn't want to put too many tutors in this deck. Well, rather in any of these decks, because like if you're new to the game, you're not going to know what you're tutoring for. This is an easy one to put in because the leaders say, I need Imperials. And this is like, I'm going to get you Imperials. Easy peasy. Childson. Oh my gosh. How many of us have suffered at the hands of Childson in Premiere? Oh my gosh. He's so good. So he's a 2/2 Sentinel. When played, reveal up to 4 blue cards from your hand. For each card revealed in this way, give an experience token to this unit. We've got blue cards in this deck. It's not a mono blue deck by any means, but I think it's reasonable to assume that Childson can get at least 1 or 2 experience on him just from his when played ability. And if you've got the extra resources, stick another experience on him. Like he gets big real quick. And since he's a Sentinel, it is so hard to deal with him. I think he's very fun with this combination of leaders because he can get out of control even faster. Johnson's great. Don't resource him. Gideon Hask. Gideon is so good in this deck. 5/5. When an enemy unit is defeated, give an experience token to a friendly unit. You are just handing out upgrades like candy here. He comes out on the same turn that Tarkin deploys. So Gideon, if you are able to kill somebody, can actually give experience tokens to Tarkin. Tarkin can't give experience to himself, so this is a good way of getting them onto him because we want to buff him as well because, leaders are harder to kill than other units. There's a lot of stuff that says, oh, do this bad thing to a non-leader unit. Do this bad thing to a non-leader unit. We stack some upgrades on our leader. He's going to be extra hard to deal with because, again, Tarkin's got 7 health. Like, you stick some experience on him, and people are going to be like, oh, man, how do we take care of Tarkin? Ugh. So you see, like, in this deck, like, everything is just kind of, like, small by itself, but then as you progress and you play more, it just becomes more unmanageable the more stuff people let you get away with. Gideon is great. Just think of him as anytime something else dies, even if you didn't kill it, as long as it wasn't yours, one of your guys is going to get an experience, which if they didn't have an upgrade, they're now +2/+1. Huzzah. Ruck, Thrawn's assassin. I think he's very cool. I don't think he gets enough play either. He's an Imperial. He's shielded, which counts as an upgrade, which means he's +1/+0 just because he has a shield. When he deals combat damage to a non-leader unit while attacking, defeat that unit. You can just use Ruck as your assassin and just kill guys. When he's you basically get a free hit because he's got a shield. And I think he's just really good at controlling the board and being like a big old chonkus that people can't deal with, especially if you start getting experience on him. Super Commando Squad. They're shielded. They come in with an upgrade. So because of Saxon, they're going to be a 5/4 just when they come out on the board. When they're upgraded, they gain Sentinel. So as long as they have that shield, they've got Sentinel. You stick an experience on them with Tarkin, they've got Sentinel. They're just hard to deal with, and they look very cool. It's another one of those, put the hyperspace in your deck if you have one. It looks very neat. Academy Defense Walker. We discussed this in our GI Krennic deck. You're likely going to have some damaged units. People are going to be running into them. You're going to be running into other people's stuff because you've got a lot of units. You're going to be using them to kill other people's units. It's just going to give experience to all of them. Just doling them out like candy. If you're damaged, you get an experience token. I think it's awesome. And it's Imperial, which is also great. ATST. It's a 6/7 Imperial Walker with Overwhelm. Yes, please. Just, again, an experience makes it +2/+1. An 8/8. It costs 6. This is the point in the game when it's like, oh, how much longer can I get away with this? This one's got a few more high cost units than the Grand Inquisitor Krennic deck. I think this could be interesting to see how these work. 97th Legion, it's a 7 cost. It gets +1/+1 for each resource you control. So this thing is likely going to come in as a 7/7. It's just another big chonkus that people aren't going to want to deal with. Gets real strong with an experience on it. And is a trooper. AT-AT Suppressor. This is awesome in Twin Suns. When played, exhaust all ground units. If you have the initiative and you have 8 resources, you play the AT-AT and everyone else like just looks at you and shakes their head and is like, okay, I guess we're done this round. Wah wah. Last but not least on the ground, Emperor Palpatine, one of the few rares in this deck. He's a 6/6 with Overwhelm. When played, deals 6 damage divided as you choose among enemy units. He's just so good as a minor board wipe. He's Imperial, so you can put a counter on him with Tarkin. It's just Palpatine is a great late game card. I thought it was nice to have some good late game cards in this deck. Good by Twin Sun standards. So that's why Palpatine is in here. I think he's a relatively cheap card for a rare. I think he's around $1. But you could probably cut him if you're trying to save like a little bit of money. Probably an easier card to resource if you get them earlier on too. Okay, space units. Saw the TIE Fighter. Bam. Turn 1, you play it, you stick an experience on it. Inferno 4. If you have a blue deck, a blue villain deck, you should be playing Inferno 4 in it in Twin Suns. It just gets you the ability to look at the cards on the top of your deck and say, I don't need these. Maybe you play it on turn 1. You're like, oh, it's Emperor Palpatine and 97th Legion. Those are going on the bottom because I want to draw things that I'm actually going to play soon. Also great that it's an Imperial ship. It can be easily buffed by Tarkin. So you stick an experience on it and you're like, oh, well, that's a 4/4. Heck yeah. Outland TIE Vanguard. Love this one. When played, you may give an experience token to another unit that costs 3 or less. Well, guess what? We have a lot of those in here. So you get to put an experience for free on one of your little troopers. Life is good. You can also use it as negotiation fodder to say, maybe I'll put a token on one of your guys if you do me a favor and, kill that person. So anytime someone says another unit, that doesn't necessarily mean one of your guys. It's good for people to learn that are new to this game that, oh, well, I have currency that other people might find valuable. Lurking TIE. Wait a second. That's a yellow card. Whoa, there's no yellow in these. Yes, it is the one out of aspect card in this deck, which number 1 teaches people about the value of playing cards out of aspect. I did a whole video on this. If you are interested, please check that out about when it's good to play cards out of aspect. Lurking TIE in this deck for 5, I think it's still a deal. It is Imperial. It has raid 2. Your opponents are going to have a mega super hard time dealing with it. It can't be captured, damaged, or defeated by enemy card abilities. They just have to ram into it with something. There are some other things that can kill it. But for the purposes of our little baby Padawan beginner game, people are going to be like, oh my gosh, the Lurking TIE Phantom, this is real bad. How do we deal with this? So this card is great because you can continue to stick upgrades on it. The more stuff you put on it, the harder it's going to be. If you put like 3 experience on this, like it's GG, y'all. Like the Lurking TIE Phantom is so much of a pain if you start stacking upgrades. Love it. I think it's definitely worth paying 5 for. Imperial Interceptor. You bring out an Imperial ship, deal 3 damage to a space unit. You can stick an experience on it with Tarkin. Beautiful. And TIE Advanced. Give 2 experience tokens to another friendly Imperial unit. Yes, we want experience tokens on things anyway. Those are upgrades for Saxon. Beautiful. Love the TIE Advanced. Definitely. I think at 4, it's a deal for the amount that it buffs you because of our leader choice. Gladiator Star Destroyer. This one's cool. When played, give a unit Sentinel for this phase. So if you're low on Sentinels, then you can just play this, make one of your other guys a Sentinel. It could, in fact, be one of your leaders. It could be one of an opponent's units. Like, the sky's the limit, y'all. Also, it's Imperial, so you can stick an experience on it later. Lastly, we got Ruthless Raider. Ruthless Raider is just, oh, it's so good. When played, when defeated, deal 2 damage to an enemy base and 2 damage to an enemy unit. That's regardless of arena. If somebody kills it, you still get to damage something too. It's just like the amount of damage this thing can push out, regardless of its 4/6 stats, is just fantastic. And if you can stick some experience on there, even better. Ruthless Raider is great. It is such a good late game finisher. Oh my gosh, yes. All right, let's go down to the events. So we got a few in here. We've got 1 smuggle card because, again, I don't want to inundate people with smuggle. Smuggle can be kind of a weird mechanic if you're just learning the game. I feel like it's good to have maybe a couple smuggle cards in a learn to play deck just to see how it works, but we don't want to just like make people constantly like flipping over their resources all game if they're kind of juggling with all the other game rules while they're doing this. Heal 2 damage from a unit and give an experience token to it. Great. We can swing with let's just say we swing with our scout bike pursuer. We kill something easy. Like, I don't know, maybe someone has a Greedo out or someone has a Death Star Stormtrooper on their side. We swing at their Death Star Stormtrooper with the scout bike pursuer. We get gridded the heck up. And then we play Covert Strength. We heal 2 out of the 3 damage from our unit, give it an experience. Like, we've made it that much stronger. This card's great in this deck. Anything that gives an experience is perfect. Precision Fire. This is part of the reason there's so many troopers. Attack with a unit, it gains Saboteur for this attack. If it's a trooper, it also gets +2/+0 for this attack. So Precision Fire means you take one of those many troopers that we have, you make it so it can bypass sentinels or defeat shields. Like, you're going to get in there, you're going to do a ton of damage. Like, if you put this on, if you use this with Gideon Hask, like, even if he doesn't have any experience on him, he's still swinging for 7. That's like, it's pretty good. Tactical Advantage. Just give a unit +2/+2 for this phase. Just make your guys a little harder to kill and do some extra damage. I think it's great in a slow-moving deck like this one. Encouraging Leadership. We are likely going to have a lot of guys on the field. This one just makes them all that much stronger. So if you've got a bunch of little cheap dudes, maybe you haven't gotten a chance to put experience on them, at least this will get a little bit of extra damage. Evidence of the Crime. I think this is a really interesting one in this deck. It's one of the few cute cards. Take control of an upgrade that costs 3 or less and attach it to an eligible unit of your choice. So this can do a couple of things. It can move an experience from one of your units to another. It can move an experience or an upgrade from one of your opponent's units to one of yours, which has, of course, the awesome side effect of giving them the additional buff from having an upgrade because Gar Saxon is your leader. And, you know, it's thematic. We've got Tarkin. We've got Tarkin on the card. So it's like, you got to have Tarkin's card in Tarkin's deck. Come on. It's like the law. Moan of Glory. Give a unit +4/+4 for this phase. Again, like, it's twinsuns. We can get away with playing cards like this. You just make a guy extra big and swing with him. It's like just a big, dumb card that I think is really good in this format. Open Fire. It's great to have removal. We'll just use this. We'll kill something. Bada bing, bada boom. By the same token, Fell the Dragon. Takedown. I'm going to have these in a lot of these decks because they're just kind of good general removal that teaches you when to save takedown. Do I use this for a leader? Fell the Dragon. I can't use this on a leader, but maybe if someone else is playing something that gets too big and out of hand, well, I can kill it easily with this one, so maybe I hold on to that because I think they're playing something big. Maximum Firepower. This is cool. This makes use of your Imperial units. A friendly Imperial unit deals damage equal to its power to a unit. Then another friendly Imperial unit deals damage equal to its power to the same unit. This is a great leader killer. We're going to have Imperials. They're going to be beefed up because of their experience. We use Maximum Firepower. We just have everybody on the same dude. They're going to be in a world of pain. It's going to be great. Lastly, Overwhelming Barrage. Come on, it's villain green. It's going to have Overwhelming Barrage. Give the friendly unit +2/+2 for this phase. Then it deals damage equal to its power divided as you choose among any number of other units. This is such a staple of any villain green deck. It's so good. Buffs a guy for the turn. Deals a whole bunch of damage. You get to pick how it goes. It doesn't care what arena it's in. It's just awesome. It's such a good card to hold on to if you're around 5 resources. It helps deal with a ton of threats on the board. And this is a great way of teaching people that are new to the game, when do I save my removal? When do I resource my removal? Most of the time in my head, whenever I resource removal, I hear a little voice being like, you should never resource removal. So this is a good time to train that voice to speak up a little bit more for new players. All right, lastly, we've got a few bona fide, honest to goodness, actual factual upgrades. Remember 30-something minutes ago when I was talking about Saxon's ability when he is deployed as a leader. Each friendly upgraded unit gets the buff and gains, when defeated, you may return an upgrade that was attached to this unit to its owner's hand. Well, these are the 4 upgrades in this deck that can actually go back to somebody's hand. We got Infiltrator skill. Attached unit gains Saboteur, gets +1/+1, +2/+1 because of Saxon. It's just a good, cheap little thing to get your units slightly better at killing. That's just what they want to do. Strategic Acumen. I thought this was one of the few cute cards. I thought this was a neat include in this deck. So because of Saxon, you pay 1, you get this on your unit. It makes them +1/+2, and they gain action, exhaust this, play a unit from your hand. It costs 1 less. Because we're going to be playing slightly behind the curve a lot of time, because remember, we want to pay 1 resource per turn, ideally, to use Tarkin's ability to put an experience token on a unit. So if we get this out early on, we can use this unit. Maybe it's a Sentinel. Maybe we don't care about attacking with it. We just want it to survive. So you stick Strategic Acumen on something like the Cell Block card. You stick it on Crosshair because maybe, he's got a big butt. Maybe we're not quite ready to start shooting people. You stick it on the Phase 3 Dark Trooper. Something like that. And you say, okay, we're going to instead use you to get guys out for a little bit cheaper and balance out the cost of using Tarkin's ability. I think it's a neat little addition in the deck. I don't know. What do y'all think? Academy training. Look, I've played this card enough times to know that nothing beats I'm sending this unit to the academy when playing this. It's just like every time. It just makes me chuckle. But, 2 to make something +3/+2 permanently seems pretty good. And also it's just fun to think about sending stormtroopers to the academy because they're not really very good at shooting things. Lastly, squad support. Attached to non-leader unit. Attached unit gains. This unit gets +1/+1 for each trooper unit you control. If that unit is a trooper, guess what? It gets +1/+1. And also, you get +1/+0 because of Saxon. So this is an awesome, once you have a lot of units out, there's going to be a decent amount of troopers. You play squad support. Suddenly, you've got this big butt chonkus that nobody else is going to want to deal with. I think squad support is great. And it's not necessarily a card that you will use every game, but I think it could come in clutch in a lot of situations. All right, so that's all the stuff in our budget Grand Moff Tarkin Saxon deck. What do y'all think? Is this a deck that would work good in a Twin Suns newbies deck pod? I would love to hear your thoughts. Please leave me a comment. And we've got 2 more videos coming out in this series. We've got some other fun stuff planned for the future. I want to talk about jump to lightspeed leader pairings because we're almost done in spoiler season getting them all. It's going to be really fun to do some Twin Suns deck building brainstorming. I've got some other 80 card decks of older cards that I want to talk about. So much stuff. Can't wait to share it with y'all. And I think that's going to do it for me for this episode. So if you've stuck with me this long, can't wait to do this again next time.